Are you thinking of putting lithium batteries on your boat? We just did, and I'll tell you about the experience. This is Carolyn Sherlock, and this is the Boat Galley Podcast. Here, we try to answer all the questions you may have about cruising. This episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Shambhala Sailing Adventures, offering customized learning charters in the Exumas, Bahamas. Sailor like your owner with coaching from Captain Suki Cannon. Contact her at Captain Suki, that's CAPTAINSUKY, @gmail.com. Mention this podcast for 10% off. Lithium batteries were a huge upgrade on our boat, Barefoot Gal. Just over 2 weeks ago, Alex Miller of SeaTech installed 300 amp hours of Dragonfly lithium batteries on our boat. It has been a total game changer. We had thought about switching to lithium batteries 3 years ago when we changed batteries, but at the time they were just too expensive and required the installer to add a battery management system to prevent overcharging or over-discharge. We'd have to upgrade some of our chargers and regulators. Our battery compartment had limited space. Bottom line was that it just didn't seem like a good solution back then. Let's just say that lithium batteries have come a long way in the past 3 years. Both Dragonfly and Battleborn now have 100 amp hour batteries that are replacements for Trojan 6-volt golf cart batteries. They're the exact same size and similar in size to most Group 27 batteries. Since many boats have battery compartments designed for golf cart batteries or Group 27s, it's a huge plus. And I should mention that these batteries, unlike the Trojan golf cart batteries, these are 12-volt batteries. You get 100 amp hours at 12 volts. These batteries are also a simple drop-in replacement for your existing batteries. Assuming that you have decent voltage regulation from your shore power charger, alternator, solar or wind, along with a good battery monitor, you won't have to replace any of it. The Dragonfly lithium batteries have an internal mechanism, that's a battery management system, that will cut off charging before overcharging and cut off loads before over-discharging. Battleborns have a similar system. The only things that you'll need to change are the charging parameters on the regulators and possibly your battery cables. In years past, fire was a concern with certain types of lithium batteries. With the new technology, that's a thing of the past. In fact, lithium batteries are now safer than wet cell lead-acid batteries that can spill acid. Lithium batteries still aren't cheap, though. About $1,050 per 100 amp hour battery, but they have come down considerably in price from 3 years ago. Not having to replace charging gear helped with the overall price of the project, as did the fact that the installation is much simpler. It only took Alex about 2 hours, including making new jumper cables from battery to battery and to our bus bar, at $100 per hour. He says most installations take 2 to 4 hours. Lithium batteries should last at least 10 years, or about twice as long as wet cell lead-acid batteries. So just on that basis, they're not going to pay for themselves. But when you consider their other advantages, they're getting to the point where they do make sense. Conversations with Alex told me that there were more advantages to lithium batteries than I realized. In just the short time we've had them, I've come to see that they are all true. First, you need fewer amp hours of battery bank. Lithium batteries can be discharged 100%, although 80% is better for them in the long term, so you don't need nearly as large a battery bank. Our previous battery bank was 345 amp hours of lead-acid batteries, which we could discharge no more than 50%. This meant we had 172 usable amp hours. Now, with 300 amp hours of lithium batteries, we have 240 usable amp hours. But that's just the difference when both banks are new. Lead-acid batteries lose some capacity over time. Lithiums lose far, far less. Consequently, each year down the road, there'll be a bigger difference in usable amp hours between lead-acid and lithium batteries. Lithium batteries also weigh considerably less than any batteries used on a boat. Our new lithium batteries weigh about half what the deep cycle lead-acid batteries did. That's nice for the weight of the boat, but the bigger deal might just be in trying to move them in and out of the battery compartment. Fully charged lead-acid batteries will rest at 12.6 to 12.8 volts. As a load is placed on them and they're discharged, the voltage will drop. Consequently, things like refrigerators, water makers, microwaves, and inverters do not run as efficiently and may end up drawing more amps, causing a downward spiral. Lithium batteries rest at 12.8 volts, and that doesn't particularly change with the load placed on them or how far discharged they are. A refrigerator takes about 10% fewer amps when running. Our water maker puts out more water in the same amount of time. And lithium batteries can put out a lot of amps with no damage to the batteries, unlike deep cycle lead-acid batteries. Lead-acids simply can't keep pumping out the amps and maintain the voltage. With lithium batteries, there is no need for a separate starting battery with different technology. If you want a separate start battery just for redundancy, that's fine. But the batteries won't be hurt by the heavy load that the starter or windlass places on them. Because Barefoot Gal's engine is small, we did away with a separate start battery long ago and just used our house battery bank. Still, we'd also see a noticeable dip in the battery voltage when we started the engine. Not so with lithiums. In fact, I was a little surprised at how quickly the engine started, and I hadn't thought it was slow before. The voltage is noticeably higher, causing it to start more easily. If the lithium battery bank and inverter are large enough, you can even run an AC high-capacity water maker from lithium batteries. I know of several who do here in Boot Key Harbor, and Alex just did a demo to Rainman water makers, showing how well they can work together. Of course, if you do something like that, the next question is how you'll recharge the batteries. And that's where lithiums shine. Lithium batteries can take higher charging amps for a far higher percentage of their capacity than lead-acid batteries. Lead-acid batteries will only take full amps to about 80% of capacity, then start tapering off the amps. This makes filling them completely very time-consuming, and if you're running a generator or using solar or wind power, you're likely to be basically throwing away some of the power generated, as the batteries are between 80 and 100% full. Lithium batteries, in contrast, can be fast-charged almost to 100% full. The Dragonfly website says that while you can charge at a rate of 100 amps per 100 amp-hour battery, they recommend 50 amps. So if your charging source will put out this much power, they could go from 100% discharged to full in 2 hours. And of course, we only really want to take them to 80% discharged, and they don't need or even want to be fully charged, unlike lead-acid batteries. So, our 300 amp-hour lithium battery bank could take 150 amps charging. Wow. We don't have that large of a solar array. Ours will only put out about 20 amps in the right conditions. And our shore charger, used with the Honda 2000 generator, will put out 75 amps. Our alternator will put out about 30 amps max. In short, whatever we can give the batteries, they'll take. No power will be wasted. From an environmental standpoint, we like to run the generator as little as possible, but sometimes weather conditions are such that it's necessary. Being able to charge at a full 75 amps all the way until the batteries are virtually full, instead of tapering the amount that lead-acid batteries require, means that we are running the generator significantly less. Now, one important thing to note about charging from a generator or shore power: some chargers or charge regulators, like ours, will only put out full amps for a limited amount of time, and then will automatically ramp down, regardless of what the batteries would take. For us, that occurs after 30 minutes. But the lithium batteries will take the full amps for far longer. Ramping down means that we'll have to charge longer, something we don't want. So our workaround is to flip the shore power off, wait 30 seconds or so, and then turn it back on. And we're right back up to full charging for another 30 minutes. Another charging advantage of lithium batteries is that you can get out 99% of the energy you put into them, versus about 85% with lead-acid batteries, and that percentage drops each year. This equates to getting about 15% more out of your charging sources. For us, that's like adding another 50-watt solar panel to our existing 345 watts. If you use a generator, it takes another 15% off the generator runtime. And then there's zero maintenance. I don't have to water lithium batteries. Okay, it was pretty easy to do with our battery watering system, but it had taken a day to set up the system, and I had to remember to do it. It's just not something I even think about anymore. The bottom line is that we are very glad we made the switch to lithium batteries. One of the main reasons we upgraded was to hopefully avoid the need for more solar power. When we had added an Engel refrigerator to our isotherm last spring, largely due to my diabetes, the extra energy required was just enough to tip us from usually getting full from our solar every day to usually not. Every couple of days, or every day if it was cloudy or rainy, we'd have to run the generator with the lead-acid batteries. And we'd usually run it for at least an hour, sometimes more. We hated the noise, the reliance on fossil fuel, and the pollution. We talked to Alex about adding more solar, but couldn't find a good place to mount another panel on the boat. And it would be a little more weight and windage. Then he suggested we looked at getting lithium batteries due to their greatly improved performance and charging. We took a deep breath and said yes. In a little over 2 weeks with lithium batteries, we have run the generator once for about an hour and a half. In retrospect, we probably didn't need to run it as soon as we did, but coming from lead-acid batteries, we were nervous when the state of charge said we were 60% down after several cloudy days. It's now been actually 15 days since that one time we charged with the generator. Our power usage hasn't decreased a bit. We're still running 2 refrigerators and a water maker, plus everything else on board. We haven't suddenly had sunnier days or better solar conditions. It has just been the greater ability to use all the power that any energy source puts out, plus the improved charging efficiency. The higher resting voltage also plays a part, as does the ability to discharge the batteries further. A deficit one day doesn't have to be made up immediately. For us, the longer lifespan, greater usable amp hours, and lighter weight of the lithium batteries are the best known benefits, but just the start. The better charging profile has made a huge difference in our lives. The ability to run larger loads through the inverter instead of the generator will be nice when we have the need. The ability to use the windlass without the engine or generator running may someday allow us to get out of an untenable anchorage in 3-foot seas and with a dead engine. Yes, the lithium batteries were expensive, but we're avoiding the cost of another solar panel and regulator or the cost of running the generator. I've put several resources in the show notes, including the link to Alex Miller, who's the owner of C-Tech and who did our upgrade. I've also put a link to the Dragonfly lithium batteries and to several other resources that I've mentioned here. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please be sure to subscribe in your podcast app. Just search for the Boat Galley Podcast. And reviews are always appreciated. Until next time, then.
Slow down.